Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to express my great joy to be able to welcome Alexander here in person. Alexander, once again, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for now, and I will give the floor directly to Alexandr Tkachenko for his opening remarks. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Taking time to listen to me. For me, it's a rare occasion to visit Europe during these times. Of course, in 3 weeks from now, Christmas will be coming to Europe and to Ukraine too. Christmas gifts and family dinners that will be at the same time in all of the countries in Europe. But Ukrainians this year with no electricity, heating, water, and Ukrainian armed forces continue to fight to defend not only Ukrainians but Europeans to allow to have and to celebrate Christmas as it usual. We prepared a short presentation about how it was and how it is right now, and if you allow me, I will try to follow this. So, despite all difficulties, as you see, this is Kyiv Philharmonic. We continue performing even without electricity with lights. This is a robbed museum in Kherson. I was here 1 week ago. More than 80% of art museum and 80% of local museum were robbed by Russians. They stolen the most significant artifacts from the museum. But before the war, we were enjoying better life. As you see, regular visitors of culture institutions grew up. The total budget was more or less okay. We started a program of big restoration, and we're planning to invest a lot this year, from 59 objects, 57 sites to more than 120 sites this year. But war started. So what we have right now, 1,000 buildings of culture infrastructure, severely damaged or totally destroyed, among them 270 religious buildings, 10% loss in key personnel, 50% of institutions are partially or fully closed, do not earn any tickets revenue, so it's also a loss for the industry. That's 90% experienced or 20% cut in state of local funding, and 100% reduction on government support to independent institutions through our public organizations like Ukrainian Culture Fund and Ukrainian Book Institute. If we speak about media sector, 200 media outlets closed down due to Russian invasion. 16 TV towers were shelled. 40% of staff were dismissed. 90 journalists and media workers were killed. It's a sharp drop of advertisement market, 90% in TV and non-TV 80%, and significantly reduced capacity to produce own TV content. What key challenges we're facing? First of all, winter is coming. We call it winterization of cultural institutions and further protection of culture heritage, museums and libraries. Digitalization of sector so we can fix everything and to be digitalized not only in museums but institutions too. Massive outflow of talents, loss of audiences and income, significantly reduced capacity to create and continue artistic activity to provide culture services. Of course, we have no possibilities now to fund any more Ukrainian Culture Fund and Ukrainian Book Institute, but for next year we accumulate some amount of money from state budget. Loss of skilled personnel, expected loss 20%, 4,000 people. Linguicide, cultural and media isolation on occupied territories, 100% displacement from Ukrainian information and cultural sphere. I recently described to one of my colleagues in this room, I was in Kharkiv region, liberated, and in one of Ukrainian libraries, they stocked all books in Ukrainian, even Stephen King, to be removed. It's simply genocide against Ukrainian language. So urgent works and equipment, conservation works of damaged buildings, further evacuation, extra safety measures, generators, batteries, etc. are needed. Just to give you understanding about the expectations and needs of batteries and generators, we gathered information from across whole Ukraine. It's more than 4,000. 50 objects of cultural heritage sites needs protection or conservation work. We're not speaking about rebuilding, we're speaking about windows, roofs, and safety of museums collection, which is part of European heritage, of course, is needed, especially during the winter. Equipment, cyber protection, digitalization of services in culture sphere, digitalization of state museum fund and historical areas, technical components. Here are estimations of the amount of money we're going to look for. It is 12 million museums objects, 120,000 immovable culture heritage objects in 2,500 museums. The ministry needs to create secure database, hardware, services upgrade, cybersecurity. Museum and libraries need equipment for digitalization process. And thank you for our Polish friends for starting this process of helping us. Support to those artists, cultural managers, and institutions who are working in Ukraine. I want to emphasize, working in Ukraine, not in the countries that we succeed to live right now, but in Ukraine, because 70 to 80% of these people are staying in Ukraine. They continue to work, and we need to keep them in Ukraine, not to flow away. We need this talent to continue to work in Ukraine. Estimated need is 45 million for 2023. It's mean a review of artistic creation of individual artists, provided grant support to independent municipal and state institutions, establish horizontal cooperation between European and Ukrainian institutions, study trips, internship, joint projects. Cultural and information reintegration of deoccupied territories. I recently was in Kherson. People are very much enthusiastic that Ukraine come back. And we need to show this support. People want to renew performances in theaters, to relaunch, to start work of museums. We are announcing gathering collections for those museums which were robbed. Supporting tours of Ukrainian artists to perform in deoccupied territories and renew press and media presence in these territories. First thing we're bringing to these territories are newspapers. So if we speak about media sector, there are huge loss in advertisement, as I mentioned. Of course, extra operational costs to support our activity. We organized United Telemarathon, which have 100% of coverage and 70% of trust. Total expected losses is around 1.4 billion annually. We also organized Freedom Russian language TV news channels of Ukraine, which is available across Europe. And our request is to promote this Russian-speaking channel in European countries, because we do have 4.7 billion of viewers during 8 months in YouTube. 60% of them come from Russian territory. And another part are including Kazakhstan and European countries, first of all. Just to compare, if we're speaking about Russian propaganda, you can compare cost. We're spending for United Marathon, and Russian are spending of state budget during this war. It's uncomparable. And coordination of efforts in terms of fighting with Russian propaganda definitely are needed. So what we are calling, that's probably 3 main pages which I would like you to consider. To impose sanctions on representatives of Russian Federation and suspend the participation in international cultural events unless they make an immediate public statement in clear and equal terms condemning the actions of Russian government and serving all times with any organization or institutions, even partially sponsored by the Russian government. Suspend the cultural projects which involve the Russian Federation, including projects implementing the sponsorship from Russian companies. Suspend the operations of the Russian cultural centers located in partner countries. Arrest the Russian cultural property until they return stolen Ukrainian objects. promote and support Ukrainian culture representatives in European Union. It's hard for Ukrainians to see that opera singer Netrebko, who supported Putin all the time, simply because she announced that she is not supporting the war, is now allowed to perform on leading stages in Europe. So that's why I would like to emphasize that Russian culture is the same propagandistic machine of the war as a media machine. We believe that all talks about support of Ukraine, you see the figures I showed you before, can turned to concrete amount of money. 1% it's not a huge sum, but it's probably a smart move which only culture ministers can allow for themselves, because it's hard to imagine in all other spheres. That 1% of your ministers' budgets annually during 2023-2026 can go to support Ukrainian culture and media. Of course, 1% is a big amount or affordable. It is impossible or a sign of hope. It is formal or symbolic. I believe you know the answer and how it can affect the next 3 years preserving culture and historical heritage in Ukraine in culture life. Even symbolic gesture of today's your meeting can give a hope to Ukrainians during this period of time. This would aim us to enable a systematic operation in government level, provide immediate support for protection and conservation of European heritage sites, develop a digital inventory, launch digitalization, grant cooperation and co-production, which is important, very important for us to have co-production between Ukrainian and European culture institutions, facilitate to support independent media, funding to rebuild and to restore culture heritage, and media's infrastructure after the victory. This is a vision of Ukraine culture. This is a mission of our ministry. We believe we can succeed with your support and our victory. And I would like once again to thank you, all of you. And please, you are always welcome in Ukraine. Please come. Thank you.
Alexander, thank you. Thank you very much for your very emotional and very specific presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we cannot remain calm when we see these photos of invaluable Ukrainian cultural heritage, which has become the victim of the Russian war of aggression, but also one of the targets of the Russian aggression. This is unbelievable and unimaginable to us in Europe, to imagine that there is a country that targets cultural institutions, loots museums, and also wages a propaganda war against the core values. This is why I felt it was so important